Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Hero Movie Podcast, your greatest source for superhero movie discussion in the multiverse. I'm your host, Adam Porters, and I'm joined by Bruce Leslie.
I'm a prickly pear, and I've got a face not even an alien wants to hug.
Ooh, get it away. It's gross and disgusting, everybody. And we've got a show here that's also slathered with a whole bunch of KY jelly, because that's what they used in this movie.
Yes, everywhere.
Oh,
everywhere.
It's so gross and everything is wet, but we're here to towel you off with a good old episode of HMP. And this week's episode is brought to you by the people that support us over at patreon.com/HMP. Now, what's that, you ask? That's where the people who enjoy this program a little bit too much. You know, we call those the crazy people. These people, they say, you know what, I appreciate the hour's worth of content that you give me every week here. That's all well and good, but I want more. That's what the Patreon people are saying. They're like, I want more, and they're like, okay, fine, we'll give you the pre-show. Us kind of hanging out ahead of time and talking about the show. But then they're like, no, I want more than that. I'm like, all right, fine. We'll give you the post show where we're just kind of chatting and, you know, talking about whatever. You get it. And they're like, no, I want even more than that. We're like, okay, fine. We'll give you a whole Dinger Zone episode, which usually goes about a half hour, sometimes even up to an hour if we're reviewing some of those movies that we did. And, we're giving you more content, man, and that's what we want to do here for those of you that enjoy this well enough and feel that we bring some sort of value into your life. Just give that back in monetary form. Just say, hey, you know, I'd like to get more stuff, and plus I'd like to keep this show on the air and rolling and everything. And you can do that in a couple ways: time, talent, or treasure, man. There's one of those, or all three if you're one of those people. Time, in as much as you just say, hey, tell your friends about this show, let them know that it exists, review us on iTunes. See, that's just takes a little bit of time to do that. That's perfectly fine. Talent, if you've got some artwork or something that you would like to, update our artwork or something, hey, we'll take that. Anything that you want to do. And if you don't have any of those talents or anything like that, just head on over to patreon.com/HMP. Like I said, that's what kind of keeps this show going. And we really appreciate that. And we appreciate all of you. So, but they get one more thing that I neglected to tell you about, because that's what leads into this week's episode. Every single month, we get everybody around, and we have a Patreon Zoom meeting, right? So we get all the people that want to come in, and I chat with them. We had Bruce on the first time that we did that. Maybe Sean will get there one day. Maybe one day. But we all kind of get in and talk a little bit of this, that, and the other. And this month was a little bit different. Normally, we just kind of hang out, tell some stories or whatever. But this month, we said we're going to have our Patreon people nominate the movies that we will vote on this month, and that we're going to vote on them right then and there, and we did that. I forget exactly what the entire slot ended up being. I should have had that up in my notes. I apologize. But ultimately, what won out was Alien.
Yes.
And I'm super excited about this, because this is one of my favorite movies of all time. Bruce, your experience with Alien over the years?
You know, it's like one of those movies, sure, I know a lot about it. It pervades pop culture, so I've had a few, like odds and ends to decorate and everything. But to be honest, I probably had way more of a relationship with the sequel, Aliens.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know when the last time I had actually watched this movie all the way through was. And of course, like I say, a lot about it because it pervades pop culture. But it was as if I had never seen it before when I watched it today for this review. So it's kind of cool. I kind of feel like I'm going into it with somewhat fresh eyes.
The weird thing is I have a lot of that experience as well. Despite the fact that I've seen this movie so many times, I know so much of it, but there's still some odd bits of me every now and then that just go like, wait a minute, what happens again? I kind of like I always kind of forget what's going on, and it feels like the movie still surprises me, even though technically I know everywhere where it's going to go. But it's like, look at that, yet again.
Now, for me, watching the movie, an interesting thing about it is I actually kind of enjoyed it more thinking about it once it was over than the actual process of watching it, because it's deliberately paced. It's made to help tension build, but sometimes until the product is finished, it's like sometimes until you finish a book, you just don't know how good it is.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why you'll go back and reread a book or go back and rewatch a movie. So like for me, a lot of the enjoyment and a lot of the fun was just like reflecting back on it, making notes after it was over with, thinking about it, like all the thoughts that popped into my head. So I probably will end up watching this a few more times.
And it's weird because it's kind of a challenging thing that like you sit and you watch it and like, 'cause like you said, you know everything about it more or less, and we'll get into it. We got a lot of stuff to get into. Oh, we didn't even say why Sean's not here.
Oh yeah,
That's
we're
right.
Recording in an atypical time.
Yes, this is not a normal time. He wasn't able to get free on this, so we had a tag team partner out here, and I got the Ultimate Warrior on my team this week. You know what I'm saying? So it's all good.
Oh yeah, my blood is definitely of a different consistency.
So we'll get into all of that. So let's do it, everybody. He wasn't here last time, but we got it for him this time. And the fun part is I didn't even have to do that in post this week. I don't know what it was, but I had some problems, my man.
Woo. Well, sci-fi horror, whether you consider it a subgenre, a genre mashup, or just simply a genre in its own right, it probably started with Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, a novel that had an alternate title, The Modern Prometheus, which perhaps plays into some prequel films we may discuss someday relating to Alien. But sci-fi horror is generally identified by subjects that include, but are definitely not limited to, alien invasions, mad scientists, experiments that have gone wrong, that sort of thing. And Frankenstein has been a regular occurrence in comic books from the very beginning in the Golden Age, and a popular one at that. So it should come as no surprise that another sci-fi horror classic wasted no time in getting onto the comics page. Alien, the illustrated story, appeared in 64 critically acclaimed graphic novel pages written by Archie Goodwin and drawn by legit art legend Walt Simonson in 1979, nearly simultaneous to the release of the movie. Published by Heavy Metal, it was both a critical and commercial success, and it was the first comic book ever to be listed on the New York Times bestseller list. Huh. Would that have been your guess, Adam?
No, I don't think so. I think I would have gone like a Watchmen or something like that, something that seems obvious.
And for 8 weeks between July and September 1979, it made it as high as number 7 on the bestseller list. And I just never would have guessed that the first comic book to make New York Times bestseller would be Alien. But the plot of the comic is essentially a streamlined version of the movies, but wow, does the art pop. In 1979, the New York Times review of the book called it, quote, an eye-filling and vibrant graphic portrayal of the gripping and fantastic tale that is Alien. And even as recently as 2017, Frank Plowright of the Slings and Arrows Comic Guide expressed that the book remains Heavy Metal's best homegrown work. So, Adam, have you heard of a guy named Warren Ellis?
I have, but I want to say real quick, I like the name Plowright as well. That's a great name. What's up, baby?
It's not real.
It's Adam Plowright. That's right, everybody.
Sounds like you made that one up. But Warren Ellis, the guy's kind of a comic book legend in his own right. But Warren Ellis said Alien, the illustrated story, is the single best adaptation of film into comics ever.
Wow.
So I have to admit, I thought going into this that this would be one of those afterthought comic book connections where I just kind of point out that an after the fact comic happened, etc. But it turns out that I'm talking about one of the more significant comics in the rather large pantheon. And I had the joy of finding out stuff in my research that I was totally ignorant to. And that's really a joy all on its own. Yeah. So the praise for this comic can be piled all the way up to the ceiling. Timothy Callahan of Comic Book Resources said, Archie Goodwin and Walt Simonson crafted a little near-perfect slice of cinema in graphic novel form back in 1979, and they did it by using all the tricks at their disposal. Greg Burgess, also of CBR, he made an even bolder statement. This is what he said. He said, in some ways, the comic is better than the movie. Now, does that kind of make you want to run out and read this comic?
It's at least got me intrigued enough.
Yeah, the best analysis of the art I found comes from a guy named Stuart Kalura at IGN, and he says the artwork itself is beautiful in an alien ripping your head off kind of way. It's ornate and detailed, but The art also is rough and tough at times, which certainly is in keeping with the Truckers in Space story. It's not uncommon to turn the page and discover another stunning layout, a double splash page of the space jockey ship. Another critic simply called the artwork groundbreaking. And it should come as no surprise that the story and visuals of the movie Alien would lend itself so well to the comic book format because the legendary European comic book artist Jean Giraud, aka Mobius, made the storyboards for this movie, and he infused ample comics experience into the film's look. My personal favorite Mobius comic is called Blueberry. It's a gritty Western. It's in this dirty, lived-in world, and I can see some of those touches on the screen when I watch Alien. Now, of course, Adam, you may be familiar with Mobius as the visual designer that worked with Alejandro Jodorowsky on an adaptation of Dune that was just simply too grand to ever exist. But you kind of wonder why Simonson was chosen for the Alien comic instead of Mobius, but everything worked out pretty darn well in the end, so I won't ask too many questions. But of course, in the 80s, Dark Horse Comics started making Alien comics, and coincidentally, Dark Horse was founded in the same year Aliens was released, 1986. And for all I know, they were founded just for the purpose of making Alien comics, because they would go on to publish about 50 Alien titles, not counting the Alien versus Predator comics that we talked about a while back. So just like Star Wars, Transformers, G.I. Joe, and the Three Stooges, Alien is a licensed property that has gone on to have a most distinctive comic life to rival the product it was based on.
I tell you, that's another one we're going to have to do once we have another Sean Free episode, because I think you and I are going to be the only people that could appreciate a Three Stooges movie on HMP. And,
oh, man, the one where they go to space.
Well, just think about trying to get that Stallone connection in there. You want to talk about a hill to climb for that, boy. But we got one of those today. Don't worry, everybody. Your regular show's not going nowhere. So you don't think that you saw like Alien until like after even Aliens, right?
Oh, I'm sure that, you know, when I'm 5-6 years old, it was probably on at the house or something, you know, or I was at a cousin's house and it was playing and I watched some of it. Like I know I've seen. You know, when you're a kid, you kind of like play with toys or something, and then you look up and watch the chest burster. Then you go back to playing with toys, and you look up whenever the monster shows up. So I kind of did that sort of thing, but I never had like this time in high school when I was like, I like sci-fi. I'm going to go back and just study this classic or anything like that. I never really went back and revisited it because in 1986, Aliens, the sequel was, I would say, more designed as a crowd pleaser than Alien is.
Oh,
you know,
100%.
Yeah, so I just kind of latched onto that, and I probably, you know, especially in the 12 to 22 age, I probably thought Alien was just a little too slow or boring. I couldn't appreciate it. So, yeah, I never was real familiar with it.
Yeah, Alien is one of those things that, like, I've really grown to love over the years, and I would put probably within my top 10 films of all time. It's certainly up there, and I think is, as much as I do like Aliens, and like you said, they are a very different movie. Alien for me is the one that really kind of does it. And I want to talk about this because we talked about this at our little Patreon meeting and everything. I always I always had this idea that, like, if I ever wrote a movie that had a scene with a video store in it, there would be like a little section of dialogue where somebody would be looking for Alien, but only can find like Aliens and Alien 3 and stuff in the video store. They're not in the action section. Where's Alien at? Do you not have Alien? Why would you not have Alien? Oh, Alien is not in the action section. Alien is in the horror section. And that's one of the things that we're talking about this month, because it's obviously this week is Halloween and everything. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't think about when they think about Alien. They think, a sci-fi movie. But you know, for all intents and purposes, if you're going by kind of the definition and the idea and everything of what a horror film is, that is Alien 100%. There is this unstoppable, unknowing being that is just knows to kill, to survive for itself. And it is willing to go through anything.
Was it influential? I mean, if not for Alien, there's no way you get Leprechaun in space, right?
Not even close.
And Jason in space. But, and you know, like I said, Frankenstein, one of the classic horror properties, kind of the birth of sci-fi horror from what most people seem to think. but this is like a rebirth of it, or a new interpretation of sci-fi, very different from like Victorian sci-fi.
Yeah, so like this movie actually kind of started, before everyone goes like, well, it came right after Star Wars, so clearly they were, just trying to ride off of the coattails of Star Wars. Well, this was kind of in development and stuff before Star Wars. Give you a little bit of backstory. So Dan O'Bannon, one of the screenwriters for this, with Schusbert is the other guy. He worked with John Carpenter on Dark Star, which was John Carpenter's kind of thesis film for film school and everything. Have you seen Dark Star?
No, but I'm familiar with it. That's where the alien is just a balloon, right, or a beach ball.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. And when you I had heard Dan O'Bannon talk about Dark Star before I actually saw all of it. I'd only ever seen like clips, but none involved the alien that was in Dark Star. And I remember him saying it's basically like a beach ball. I don't know. It was kind of dumb. And I'm like, well, they can't really. And no, it straight looks like a beach ball. Like it's like a big red beach ball. And you're just like, they thought this was acceptable. And then he would turn around and do like Assault on Precinct 13 and Halloween, So what are you going to do? Everybody starts off at a different place. But Dan O'Bannon is actually stars in Dark Star. He's one of the actors.
Oh. Now,
go ahead.
I'm sorry. Keep going. I didn't want to interrupt.
No, that's all I have for there.
Okay, so people that say Alien got made, Alien is trying to cash in on the sci-fi appetites that came around Star Wars. My question is, in terms of release date, how does Alien relate to The Thing? Because I think it has a way more in common with The Thing than it ever did with Star Wars.
It's slightly before The Thing. I think The Thing is 1980, if memory serves, so like a year.
Okay. Because then, you mentioned he works with John Carpenter, and then, of course, The Thing. And then he does mention, when I was reading a little bit about, was it Ed O'Bannon? Is that the guy's name? Dan O'Bannon. I did read that he said he was very much inspired by The Thing from Another World, the 1951 movie. So I guess they both just kind of drew their inspiration from that, then sort of parallel inspiration.
Yeah, and honestly, if anything, this is more kind of Alien's just a more proper horror take on what Dark Star was just about this alien that comes on board. He's like, what if we decided to, because Dark Star kind of became more of a comedy film to a degree, again because of the silly stupid effects that kind of didn't, that sort of helped it go on the maybe this is a comedy instead. So they kind of went down, but he wanted to make it like an actual proper horror film. Now, let me give you another little fun bit of information. So Ronald Shusett, the other guy, the other accredited writer for Alien, he had actually been like a student along at, I think it was UCLA or the two schools always get me confused.
USC and UCLA.
Yeah, I forget which one that they were at. But he was like going into theater and stuff, and went to New York. Hated the weather in New York, so he's like, well, what's the closest thing? Okay, film. So he goes over and decides to move back to California because that's where he comes from, and start writing. Meets up with Dan O'Bannon and goes, hey, I have the rights to what would become Total Recall, which is We Remember It Free Wholesale.
Yeah, Philip K. Dick story.
Yeah, so he has the rights to the Philip K. Dick story, and they were like, okay, cool. Well, you can come and we can write these together. I'm kind of in a weird space with this movie that I'm writing. See if you can come in and help me. Well, he came in. He didn't really have any ideas for what would become Total Recall at that point. So he's like, okay, we'll focus on Alien right now, or what would then become Alien. I think it had it was like some sort of beast or something like that was the original name of the Star Beast.
Star Beast, which I still think that not a bad name. I mean, Alien, of course, a better name, but Star Beast, not a bad name.
But when they finally figured out all this stuff, but you were talking about Jodorowsky and all that kind of fun stuff. This is something that I finally. They put out like an Alien quadrilogy box set out a couple years ago that has all of these giant documentaries for every movie that's in those first four films. And when I say giant documentary, I mean 3 hours plus worth of documentary. Really awesome in-depth stuff. But I learned more this time rewatching some of it, where I was like, oh, they were doing all the Jodorowsky stuff, because from the last time I had watched that, I learned who he was and all of the the Jodorowsky's Dune, which I would recommend that documentary, Jodorowsky's Dune, all about what that movie could have been.
And that's almost certainly where they would have met Mobius then, who did their artwork.
Well, the big thing is that's where they met Giger.
Oh, okay. That's probably a bigger deal.
He met Giger doing that, and so he's like this weird little guy, and he looks like a little vampire.
He's Swiss, right?
Like he may be one of those people that's kind of like Tommy Wiseau, where you're not 1,000% sure where he's truly from. You're just like he's from some sort of weird Eastern European country, maybe. We're not quite sure, but something like that. But the first thing that he did when he met Dan O'Bannon was just like, "Do you want some opium?"
Wow, what a way to introduce yourself.
And he's like, "No, why do you do that to yourself?" He goes, "My visions, they haunt my mind." And it's just like, and you think that you need that? He goes, "It's like, is that why you take them?" He's like, "I do it because I'm afraid of he's afraid of his own mind. That's why he takes opium. He sees the things he draws.
He's afraid of all the monsterized penises all around.
Yeah,
him.
he draws the stuff that he draws scares him to death, so he has an opium habit.
That's awesome.
that's when you're into a weird space. And he really was like his book, The Necronomicon, which was all of the stuff that inspired Alien. And O'Bannon looked at that and was just like, that's it. But then, like one night, okay, so then we had all of this script go around. They tried to rewrite the script like 15 times. It didn't really work. They kind of wanted to take away credit from Dan O'Bannon on stuff. And he died a couple of years ago, but I never really felt like Dan O'Bannon was like happy with where he was in life. He may also been one of those people that would have probably never been happy. But people did try to screw him over a lot throughout his career. A lot of people just tried to take advantage of him in so many ways. And I think to some points he was like, maybe been too much of a pushover or something. I'm not quite sure exactly what it was, but he kind of got stepped on a whole bunch, and they always kind of had to try to put him off and make him do something else. But then again, how many times does the writer go down to like the special effects department and just go, "This is all bad. You guys need to do better than this." And like he did some of that kind of stuff, but everything that he brought to the table was really good, despite a lot of the producers and stuff really wanting him out, really wanting to try to rewrite all the scripts and stuff to make it not them.
And I think they were trying to make a low-budget drive-in movie and not something that would last the way this did. I really do.
Now, you're right. I mean, because initially this was slated to be a Roger Corman movie.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, that drive-in B-movie thing. And they still didn't give it a huge budget. Seems like people can't even agree on what the budget was, but it might have been as low as $8 million.
Well, no, see, it was supposed to be around $6 million when they first started. But then once they hired Ridley Scott, who had just basically done a lot of commercial directing, and then he did The Duelists just before this, but that's like a period piece, You wouldn't look at that and go, that's the guy who I want for my sci-fi horror epic. So they brought him in, but he went through and storyboarded out the entire movie. And one thing that you may not know about Ridley Scott is he's actually a really good artist.
I feel like I've heard that before.
He's quite a good artist. When you look at his storyboard, you're like, geez, man, Ridley Scott's pretty good, man. He could make a living as a storyboard artist. But no, the guy decides to continue to make films all the way into his 80s and everything. And I still think he's just really kind of killing it, in my opinion. But they bring him in, and he does all the storyboards, and they go from like $6 million to like 8 and change, which for at the time was pretty good. But another person that we kind of need to kind of credit with all this stuff, everybody's going to go to certain producers and stuff like that, but the real guy behind all of this is Alan Ladd Jr. Alan Ladd Jr., son of course, of Alan Ladd, who probably most famously known for Shane, which is great. That guy, like throughout his life, I think was one of the most unsung heroes of cinema history. People know who he is, but he is not sung out enough for being the guy that really took chances on people. He is the reason that Star Wars made it onto the screen. He is the reason that Alien made it onto the screen. The guy, if you look at his credits, he's just involved in so much of the stuff, and to his own credit, he will say, listen, I don't really know from any of this stuff, but I got a feeling about you. I think the talent that you guys have is going to be enough to make whatever it is that we're doing here that I don't get. But I see the talent in you, and I'm going to take a chance. And those chances paid off a big time.
And kind of on the other end of that, I had read a little bit that Ridley Scott seemed to have a talent for talking people like Harry Dean Stanton, who didn't want to make this movie at all, into being in it too. So they kind of came from both directions, you know?
Oh, Harry Dean Stanton looks like he never looked like he wanted to be in life. One of those guys that I'm sure that like was born and he was 46.
Yeah. Yeah. And you look at his oeuvre of work before Alien and you just don't see him making this movie.
No, he's one of those guys. But like, you have an absolute amazing cast with this.
Yes.
Thing.
Can we talk a little bit about this cast? Because this movie, it's got a lot of good stuff. I mean, from every angle, you can talk about things that were done well, but I still think at the core, this cast, because you got a small cast, I think it's only 7 people. You got a small cast, and you can't really afford a dud when you have so few people. So I think that this cast is worthy of talking about one at a time here.
So we got Tom Skerritt, who's right at the top of the bill here and everything.
And he's got a real Chris Christopherson energy in this movie.
Yeah, well, okay, all right, I'm gonna say this controversial statement here, everybody. Tom Skerritt, better actor than Chris Christopherson. Oh, I know.
Well, you know, there's no losers in that competition. You know what I mean? Second place is still pretty darn good. I don't know that I ever really had many like strong feelings about Tom Skerritt, but I like him as Dallas.
Well, you know, you got Top Gun, MASH, that kind of stuff.
But, you know, he was kind of, you know, you're watching Top Gun for Anthony Edwards, so you're not watching it for Tom Skerritt.
That's a good point. But yeah, Tom Skerritt, well, like, so he was kind of the lead actor. He's the one, and again, top build and everything. So and everyone was for sure this was his flick.
I'd say this is my favorite Skerritt performance.
Oh, that, you know, come on. It's Alien. It's so far up there that it's almost impossible to, you know, do it. Then you got Sigourney Weaver. Come on, Ripley. Everybody knows, but what more do we need to say?
Was she? How established was she pre-Alien?
Pretty much none. Pretty much, she was pretty much nobody.
Because in my awareness, her career starts with Alien, and my goodness, what a good start.
Yeah, I can't remember. Let me see what I think she had done. Yeah, she'd done a couple of things here and there, but like of note, Alien is it. And like the reason that she got the part is, you know, she put on like, you know, these big giant boots that made her seem like even taller than she normally is. Even walked in and kind of did her role, and they were like, yeah, that's it. And that's the one right there. And Ripley wasn't intended to be a woman. In fact, none of the roles were never necessarily meant to be anyone at all. Like, because when Dan O'Bannon originally wrote it, he had the idea that I'm probably going to end up directing this. So in like the big first drafts and everything, didn't really write all the characters out too well. People just had names, and that was about it. Characters weren't really developed or anything like that.
That's kind of a thing about space movies. You know, when you're on a ship, you just kind of have a crew. Like a lot of times I never feel like I know what anybody's job is. I just feel like, okay, we're setting up a rocket, grab 6 random people and throw them on here. You know, it kind of feels like that a lot of times, but I actually sort of know what people's jobs are here. I will admit, like, I know that Ripley is the warrant officer, but I don't know enough about naval affairs to know what a warrant officer is.
Oh, they're the ones that play warrant when the truck pulls up.
She's my cherry pie.
There's a little bit of cherry pie going in, because you got to be blasting some tunes once you're coming in with your 17 or 200 million pounds of material or whatever it is they're hauling in.
And I would say Sigourney Weaver, she brought a certain kind of like heat to that role that wasn't common in 1979.
No, and you can tell there's a couple of scenes, and this was not a super easy flick for her because she was so green, and you've got all these established actors in here who we'll get to in a minute. But you can tell, like, there's a couple of scenes, like when, you know, she's talking with Yaphet Kotto there, and he's kind of screaming at her, and she screams back at him. Like when Nancy Cartwright punches her in the head, she didn't know that was coming.
It's Veronica Cartwright, not Nancy Cartwright.
Oh, my bad.
Voice of Bart Simpson or
the voice of Bart Simpson, travel through time. Veronica Cartwright, much better looking than. I'm sorry, but no, I'm sorry, Nancy, but it's true.
Veronica Cartwright's quite the handsome lady here, man.
So let's go into her because she's kind of, as the you'll immediately think she's the lead with how they kind of frame everything and stuff like that.
And at first she looks like she's the tough one, not Sigourney Weaver, but man, Ripley, like Sigourney Weaver, she brings that toughness out like at the drop of a hat, and then it sticks.
Well, the rough part here was goddamn, Veronica Cartwright, and I was looking right at it too. That's the worst part. Veronica Cartwright actually thought she got the role of Ripley when she came in, like for like costumes and stuff. She was just like, "Oh no, wait, I'm playing Ripley." No, you're Lambert.
Wasn't she hot off Body Snatchers too? Like, this is her wheelhouse at this point in time.
Yeah, it's right around that era, but it's so she was like, okay, but here's the thing. Let's be honest. There's no way she plays Ripley. There's no way that happens in this.
Well, you can't picture any other human playing Ripley at this point, though, either.
No, they've kind of ingrained it into our brains here. Like I said, Harry Dean Stanton still just looking like every guy around every Southern gas station ever.
If you just looked at Harry Dean Stanton and you'd say, "What's his job on the crew?" You would think janitor. And he kind of is. I mean, he's an engineering technician, but he kind of carries himself like a janitor. Or if Sean were here, maybe a teamster.
Yeah, like Yaphet Kotto is the one who like dirties up the area and then tells him to clean it.
Yes, but let's go ahead, man, and spring on into Yaphet Kotto, because the two of them together to me is such a joy. Harry Dean Stanton, Yaphet Kotto as Parker playing off of each other. I love that duo in this movie.
Yaphet Kotto's still alive, unbelievable.
Yeah, and he's like, I feel like he did a lot of TV spots and stuff. I mean, in movies, probably the only thing I would really know him from would be the James Bond movie where he was Dr. Papananga or whatever his name was.
Yeah, I forget which one that was.
Yeah, but he's done a lot of TV. So even if you haven't seen like the James Bond movie and you watch Alien for the first time, he's going to have a familiarity to him.
Yeah. Well, like across 110th Street, Truck Turner, stuff like that. Like really, like he was into some of the blaxploitation stuff. So like he was kind of a star, and he let people know he was kind of a star on set too. He walked around and was just like, I mean, because he had some fights with Sigourney and was just like, listen, you're nobody. I'm a star here. I've got a following. This is my movie. You don't know how much of this is after the fact BS once Sigourney Weaver becomes a star in her own right. But he claims that Ridley Scott told him to do that to her so that when she snaps at him on camera, it'll have more verisimilitude behind it. He says he actually really liked her and hated that he had to be mean to her. But then again, that could be the fact where suddenly her star's rising and his isn't. And he says, uh-oh, I better make nice. And of course, we've got John Hurt as Kane, and John Hurt's just like fantastic and everything. Another guy that looked like he was 45 years old when he came out of the womb, I'm sure.
Probably like the second most remembered member of this cast, and he's in like the least amount of the movie.
Yeah, but that shows you how good a performance that it absolutely is. And
you've got to get a veteran of the stage and screen to do that whole chest burster scene on the table. You can't have an amateur doing that flopping around.
Well, he was another one that was not necessarily scheduled to be in this. The guy who played him got like really bad sick and everything and had to drop out. And so,
but if they just got that sickness on camera, maybe it would have looked real.
I don't know. It seemed to be, they were just like, oh no, he's ill. He's done. He's finished. We got to bring in somebody else. And they're like, we know John Hurt. Let's bring him in here. And sure enough, did fantastic. And rounding it all out, you got Ian Holm there as
That was
Ash.
the biggest surprise to me. I didn't remember or have knowledge of Ian Holm being in this.
Yeah, and he is he's so good in it. And the best part is that
get Martin Freeman in the reboot. Don't worry.
Is the way that they shoot it when you look back and you know what you know about it. And here's again spoilers for Alien. I don't know who hasn't seen it at this point. But you can, when you look back, you realize, oh, Ash has had this in his head the whole time. Because you see it on his face in cutaways and stuff when they're going to him. You know exactly what he's thinking when you watch it a second time. You're like, oh, he's conniving the whole time.
And I gotta admit, I was watching this wondering when Bishop was going to show up because, like I said, much closer relationship to Alien. So I kind of thought that Ash's character was supposed to be Bishop or something. So it took me a while to get my bearings. But that's another one of those things where if you didn't see this movie in its time, like, we've seen this kind of turn, this kind of character turn, this kind of stuff has been done so much since 1979. I kind of caught on from the beginning what was up with Ash.
Yeah, and it's kind of again become such an entrance thing into pop culture and stuff that like even if you don't know, you may even like even if you've seen like a couple episodes of The Simpsons, I'm sure that they've spoiled this left, right, and center on everything.
And like the big reveal of what Order 937 is, like in 1979, that probably was a jaw dropper to some people, but now we just expect the corporation behind it to be making this evil order. You know what I mean? It seems almost cliche at this point, but it wasn't in 1979.
No, and even like and the whole idea of having the android on and stuff worked so well that they integrated into the idea that that's what Wayland Industry does is they send along a synthetic through, with every kind of trip and stuff.
With the Ridley Scott through line, I can't help but then start thinking about Blade Runner and how that, the replicants.
Yeah, and like you can really see where Ridley Scott's talent is. It's like this is his second movie, and the guy is so assured of everything that he is doing. You just know right there, this guy is a master, and he's somebody who's going to be in this business a long, long time. Because like we said, this is a B-level monster movie, but it's done in high art fashion. High art sci-fi fashion.
It's that philosophy, like no small parts, only small actors, no small movies, only small efforts.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what Ridley Scott was given to work with. He wanted to do it right, and it shows.
But he clearly, and something that I noticed this time watching that I guess, even though I've watched it so many times, I've really saw the 2001 influence this time. Because it is so, this is that perfect film, right? So 2001 A Space Odyssey is over here on your left, which is more of your kind of slow-moving, cerebral sci-fi film that you're not quite 100% sure what it's really saying, but it is a visual masterpiece that, you can just kind of watch and be in awe of. And then there's Star Wars, which you can still watch and be in awe of, but the story is gigantic. It's big. It's sweeping. Yeah. It is that the space opera and everything.
Yeah, I mean it's the reason we use that term, space opera.
Exactly. And Alien is right there in the middle. It's like a gothic horror film, but done on a trucking ship that's bringing in for all intents and purposes oil.
And it also kind of has some overlap in Venn diagrams with like a little bit of hard sci-fi too. The kind of stuff that Star Trek used to sort of try to do. And then it's got a little tiny feeling of military sci-fi in it. I mean, it really is a sweet overlap of like 4 different circles on a Venn diagram.
And no one is, it treats its audience members intelligently. It never has to, it doesn't feel like it's trying to spell stuff out for you. The what's the word I'm looking for? The plot is explained to you through dialogue, and it doesn't feel like they're just saying it to say those words to move that thing along. It feels like something that these people would say in this particular circumstance, but it has everything in it to continuously push that story forward. It brings a reality to it. Like at the beginning when, everybody's in hypersleep and we see these like what look like helmets and stuff sitting at these computers that just pop on and there's these reflections and you're thinking, is there somebody in these things? What's going on? And then you eventually realize, no, these are just computers that are within this thing. But like the entire movie itself, while such a fantastic, display of sound and everything, can run as a silent movie. Because everything that you see in this is done so well visually that you don't even really need any of the dialogue.
And when they got out of the pods, I was expecting a Planet of the Apes moment. I was expecting there to be like a shriveled up dead body where one of the pods had cracked. I don't know. Just seen Planet of the Apes more than Alien, and that's not right, but it's just what it is.
Get your hands off me.
But also, this is one of those things, man. Movies from this time, and I would say it continued on for not quite, but close to 20 years, where now you watch and you get a kick out of how low tech those future high tech stuff really are. You know what I mean? That what people pictured in the future and how low tech it really is on screen. Of course, I think they got the pods right. That does look like they're inside an Apple store when they're getting out of their pods. But then when they're on the computer screen and stuff and just random lights, they're not even LED lights. They're just like Christmas lights blinking, all over the roof and stuff. Like some of that, it's kind of funny I always like seeing like what people in the past thought the future would look like.
Yeah. Now, one of those, I don't think he designed that one because there were several different designers throughout this entire thing. But we just lost him, like honestly, maybe a month ago. It was not even that long ago. But the fantastic Ron Cobb just passed away, and he's one of the guys that did a lot of designs, and he was in very early before a whole lot of stuff came on board. But he was one of those guys who just drew space stuff like nobody else. He would draw these interiors and stuff, and he's one of those dudes that could do it and then tell you what all the things what everything does. It's all done with a purpose. Cool. It's not like, oh, I just put this thing here or this thing here. It's like, no, this thing holds this one holds the wrenches, and this thing over here does this one, and this does. Like, he could tell you what all the stuff was. So when you see that, and what I think is one of the more under appreciated things about this movie, it doesn't get talked about enough, is how amazing these sets are. Everything looks so good. And like 2001 was a very kind of sterilized, very white and, pristine kind of looking vision of space, right? And then we have Star Wars, and everybody was like, oh, check out Star Wars. Star Wars is so cool and unique and different, and that it's kind of got that grungy real-worldness to it, The Tatooine, everything is kind of rusted, and it's got, like, scratch marks and stuff on it.
Star Wars was like the space version of what Europe was like after the fall of the Roman Empire, kind of.
Yeah.
So it like everything used to be grander than it is now.
But Alien goes, okay, I see that Star Wars. I see that. Now I'm going to make it real.
Yeah.
You feel like this could be a big giant tanker floating through space.
They make it look industrial, which is what it is. The entry, the little letters, the words that pop up on the screen at the very beginning of the movie tell you that the Nostromo is basically a tugboat, and they make it look like a commercial kind of, industrial tugboat. But the first question I started to have, though, once again, I'm not an expert on things nautical, but is it typical for a tugboat to have a science officer?
Choo choo. I don't know.
like that's the one thing I was wondering. Like these are just like working class people out there doing their job. Space truckers. That's what somebody else had called it. Space truckers, a tugboat. What in the world is it? Like, they should all be curious. Why the heck are they sending a science officer anyway?
Well, I guess you can always just go space and like that. I guess that's the answer. It's just like, it's because of space, man.
Imagine you took a career change. You went and learned how to drive a big rig. You show up on your first day to haul, I don't know, you're hauling some CD players that Vin Diesel's going to steal from you before you get to California. And they say, oh, and going along with you is this physicist. Have fun. You're going to be very suspicious of that physicist the whole trip.
It turns out it's Doc Brown.
It's a robot. He's here to kill Vin Diesel.
Robot Doc Brown's here, everybody. I don't know. There's a couple of things that are quite weird. I always did kind of go, really? No one knew that you had a robot on board here, which I thought was like, for the first one is actually that's a pretty good thing. But at the same time, you do kind of go, no one knew. Nobody. Are you kidding me?
Unless you're living in a post Blade Runner world. Ever since I've seen Blade Runner, every movie I ever watch, I think everybody's a robot.
Yeah, that guy's a robot for sure. Total robot.
Totally ruined my ability to enjoy Hot Rod.
But the first big thing doesn't come until like 58 minutes into the movie.
Yeah, very deliberately paced. And I got to tell you, in the beginning, I kind of agree with Harry Dean Stanton and Yaphet Kotto. I think it is kind of a screw job that they're only getting a half credit.
Yeah, but I love the dynamic between those characters and the crew, because they're always you feel like they probably deserve it, but at the same time too, you also kind of go, they feel like they're kind of slacking around guys as well, to where you're like, do they really deserve a whole share, because they are kind of being jerks and like,
it kind of feels like it feels like on the last flight there was just one engineer. And he complained about all the work he had to do. And they said, okay, we're going to send another one up there to help you, but you only get a half share.
Yeah.
And that's what it feels like.
No, you're probably not wrong. And I like that, as I never thought about that, but that's a great little explanation of just like, hey, listen, they don't really need two people, but we're going to send two, but you're each going to get half a share just because you're going to, complain about it and everything. But then again, you hear them just going like, just tell them it'll be like, like 14 hours. Okay, 26 hours is going to be the minimum that we're going to be able. Like, you're already lowballing me or highballing me on the hours and everything, just because you know that you're going to slack off and do nothing. So it's like, part of you also goes, I don't know that they deserve a full. I mean, like, you think they should, but they also kind of do enough to make you go, I get it.
And I got to say, another thing that amazed me watching this movie is I didn't know there were so many cigarettes in space.
Oh man, it was the 70s, man.
And they're like roll your own cigarettes too. They don't even have Marlboros or something.
Oh, you can't, you run out of filters within the first like 6 months.
Things may have changed in the future of Alien, but I kind of feel like one of the first things they would screen you for before letting you go in space is whether or not you smoked. Because, you got like oxygen tanks and fuel and stuff. Probably a closed environment like that, it stinks if too many people are smoking.
That's the old thank you for smoking. Thank God they invented the thing that allows us to smoke. Boom, we're done. So let's talk about the actual alien itself, man. The thing,
Yes.
like the chest burster scene, still works so darn well.
I want to slow down just a little bit, though, and say, as a person with a biology degree, I love the fact that this movie gave the creature a complex life cycle. Like, this is the kind of stuff I'd have to study and take tests on and things. And I think it's kind of cool that they have this complex life cycle of, you lay the egg, the face hugger hatches from the egg. It implants the larva, I guess, for lack of a better word, in a host. It becomes a parasite and rips its way out when it gets near maturity. Then it molts and grows, and the whole thing repeats. I love the idea of this complex life cycle. I don't know if Alien was the first movie to do something like that, but it certainly is the first one that has any kind of impression on me. And I love the fact that they tried to, have as much, take as much seriousness with the biology as they do with the computers and the robots and stuff.
Yeah, and that was what's funny is like that came to Ron Schubert in a dream. He was just like, he woke up and he just goes, I got it. I figured out what happens. I figured out how the alien gets on the ship. The alien screws one of the other people. And he's like, wait a minute, what? He's like, no, check it out. And like, he laid it out for him because, with the face hugger and everything. But he's like, nobody's ever done that before. Oh my God, that's genius. Put that in there. That's how we're going to do it. And then that was kind of the catalyst that really strove the story on to become what it became eventually.
And it also shows you right there in the very beginning, like the whole problem would have been solved if they just listened to Ripley. Well, but she wanted to just, I'm sorry, guys, but he's got to stay out there.
It's true. Now, Krista talked about that, like when we were doing our Patreon thing, and she said, like, oh, it's one of those things that if they just would have listened to Ripley, and that's absolutely correct. But really, you have to look at it. It's like it's not the fault is really of the Weyland Company. Is because Ash is their stooge who's going to take.
Ash was going to undercut her no matter what, but Dallas was arguing with her.
Well, yeah, that's the thing, and I understand Dallas's argument and everything, and she is 100% correct, but it is Ash who then opens it up and breaks the quarantine rule. And that is ultimately what does. So while technically that's correct, Ash was never going to follow that order anyways, just on account of he was told not to.
Yeah, Ripley was definitely not going to let the alien in. So if it was up to Ripley, Dallas would have died too. But if it was up to Dallas, then everybody dies. And Ash took Dallas's side because we later find out Ash had his own directive there, his own Order 66.
Yaphet Kotto's got the best line in the whole thing where he's just constantly just going, why don't you just freeze them? just put him on ice, just freeze him. Like he's constantly trying to get him to go to just put him in stasis, and that'll be fine. We don't need to be dealing with this right now.
One thing I will say though about that complex life cycle is it goes from chest burster to full grown beast awfully quickly. What was it eating? What was it eating though? You know, matter cannot be created nor destroyed, so it had to eat something to gain that mass to get that big that fast.
Oh, there was a colony of cats on there before then.
All the poor cats.
No, they're all gone, but except for the one. Jonesy lived. The rest of them had to die, and that's how Jonesy lived. Was on the corpses of the rest of the dead cats.
Oh, the cat would do that too.
And then the cat lures the humans in, and then the humans go, and then Harry Dean Stanton's like, "Oh, come here, little kitty, come here," and then all of a sudden the aliens behind him. That cat planted that. That's on purpose.
I read something about how they got the cat to hiss at the alien too. I'm sure you already know this. You've watched documentaries and stuff. But they said they had to bring a German Shepherd on set because that would get the cat to like hiss and bow up its back and everything as if it saw something scary. Like it wouldn't react to anything that way except the German Shepherd.
Well, you use what works.
Now continue talking about the monster before I got all excited about the life cycle.
No. It's very good though, and I love how we've got the skin that it shed and everything. But they got this guy from, I believe he's from Nigeria. I can't pronounce his name for nothing.
I think his name, I wrote it down, so I'll try here. I think it's Balahi Badejo.
That sounds pretty good. That's pretty good. That's better than I could have done. But just a giant mountain of a guy. I think he was like 7 foot something.
He had Marfan syndrome, if I read correctly. So he has these elongated limbs, and he's like 7 feet tall. Yeah, I think he actually had Marfan syndrome.
Yeah, just a
skinny,
big dude.
Tall and skinny.
Poor guy couldn't sit down in the costume, so they had to like make him like a little special chair so he could kind of like fit his tail over it and kind of sit a little bit. But he had the roughest time of all this. But the Giger design for the alien and stuff is just so amazingly good. It's sexual, it's weird, it's like insect-like but reptile-like at the same time. It's all over the place, but it's so iconically cool, and like as much as they've
it's
kind
so
of
alien. I mean, it doesn't seem like anything we could picture on Earth here.
It's so bizarre, and again, that giant long head, the crazy long limbs and stuff. So it's humanoid to a degree, but you wouldn't necessarily confuse it with a human by any means.
The one thing I never understood though was the benefit to having a smaller mouth inside your big mouth,
because it's weird and sexual.
It
and
is
that's
weird, man.
That's
weird and sexual.
Giger stuff all over, and it's just everything is just dripping wet all of the time, and it's just it's so gross and visceral that it's
and
just,
like you said, I mean, they're on the record that dripping wet was a combination of KY jelly and shredded condoms.
Yeah, just put it all in there, and you're like, good to go. But it was just
that had to be so gross to be on that set.
Oh, you have no idea.
You got milk flying everywhere. Why does the android have to run on milk?
I don't know. It does the body good.
Creepy and gross about that though. The milk everywhere. I hate old milk.
Between stuff like that and like the when they got some of like the organs and stuff for the aliens and stuff, there's just a lot of like weird meat products and stuff, like stuff that we don't eat here in the U.S. for sure. Like, that's like calf's liver wrapped in a fatty thing of this, that, or the other. But they had like things like that when all of the smoke and stuff that's in this movie, pretty much all of it's just toxic stuff that no one should be breathing by any stretch of the matter.
You once again, I can't tell you anything you probably don't already know, but I read they borrowed some special effects equipment from the Who.
I didn't know quite about that, but I wouldn't have been completely.
This was filmed in the UK, and the Who had a new like light and smoke effect they were going to use on stage for a concert, and somebody with the production managed to convince them to let them borrow it for a couple of hours.
Yeah, I think that's where the mist laser thing kind of comes through.
The blue light mist stuff with the eggs.
Yeah.
And I also got to say, a great practical effect I loved was when we see like the larval version of the facehugger moving around inside the unhatched egg. I thought that was a cool practical effect.
Yeah, it's a pair of hands. That's all it is.
It looks great.
You wouldn't know it. And it makes this weird sound, but like once you know what's in there and you look and you're like, oh yeah, that does look like a pair of hands in there, doesn't it?
And I do have to say there was at least one odd wardrobe choice. Like maybe there's multiple odd wardrobe choices, but the one that sticks out to me is that onesie that they had John Hurt wear. That is the weirdest thing. I would hate to see that in your closet, Adam.
Like, what am I, a Dickens character? What is this? It's ridiculous. Yeah. But listen, here's the thing. This movie's tough to talk about because everyone has seen it, everyone knows it, and there's a good reason that you do. Is that it's freaking amazing.
Well, I've got a couple questions for you since you're the expert here. So one of the questions is the cat in this movie Jones? Is that the cat's name?
Yeah.
Is that the inspiration for the cat in Captain Marvel?
I wouldn't be surprised if that was part of it.
Because, man, they look a lot alike, and they're both on spaceships and stuff. And then, for some reason, I've only seen Prometheus once, but I saw it in the theater. I kind of remember that movie more clearly than any of the other Alien movies. And then I'm starting to think what I'm seeing here when they first land on that abandoned planet with that big round looking abandoned ship. Is that like the ship from Prometheus? Mm-hmm. Is that fossilized, that giant fossilized skeleton? Is that one of the engineers?
Yeah, exactly.
And that is so cool now, like that it, because at the time of this movie, I don't know if anybody had thought it that far through, but now it's kind of cool to go back and
I think there's a lot
of
people that would tell you that they thought that
40 years later it'll make sense.
Yeah, eventually you'll get this, and I like those films for what they are. It's here's the thing. There are things to recommend and not recommend about the other films for sure. And this is kind of the one, in my opinion. Like if you didn't have any of the other ones and you just had this one, I think we'd still be perfectly fine.
This movie doesn't really need a sequel. You know what I mean? Like this movie exists. It's like Jaws. Jaws had all those sequels and they start getting pretty ridiculous. This is a lot like that. Like this movie is really good on its own. It's like Rocky. The sequels are crowd pleasers, but none of them are anything at all like Rocky.
Yeah,
you know?
Nightmare on Elm Street is good. That's a one and done. Let's be honest. Like, once you finish that, you're like, oh, all right, we don't really need any of these other ones. Some of them are fine. You're like, oh, okay, it's all right and everything.
And
but
then
it's
I
not
also
the first
wonder,
one.
maybe I missed it at the beginning, but does the cat go into suspended animation too?
I don't know that I've ever thought about that.
Because if there's nobody around to feed the cat, and I'm imagining they don't have a lot of rats and mice on this ship. You have to put the cat into suspended animation when you put the people in there, right?
I mean, she sure enough puts the cat in the suspended animation at the end.
Yes, it takes him on the shuttle. I got to be honest, my priorities, I wouldn't be saving the cat, even though that's what that book about screenplay says to do.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I don't know if that's where that came from, but it might as well have because it's the most obvious. But oh gosh, another quick thing. Because all of this stuff ahead of time, before we get to all the crazy action and stuff, there's so many kind of locked off or still cameras. There's a couple of great moving tracking shots and stuff like that, but for the most part, the camera's very still, very direct, very deliberate. And as the movie goes on, and as they're trying to, Ripley's got the flamethrower and everything, and they're going through. Then it gets real handheld. The lighting kind of changes and stuff, and it really becomes a slam bang action film. And to have that thing that is started for almost an hour and a half before it gets to that area where it is just throwing up everything, and it's scary. It's really good. She's flying through there. You've got the impending bomb in the background of the ship that's going to blow up and everything once it's hit the self-destruct. She tries to save the cat, go off, turn off the self-destruct. Of course that doesn't work. You're running back into so now I got to get the hell out of here. I've only got 5 minutes left. You barely gets the cat. You're off the ship. Everything is fine, and then oh no, it is not. It's a brilliant just turn. It's so good.
And, just building off of something you just said there, do any real life vehicles have a self-destruct button? Could you imagine how bad that would turn out if your car had a self-destruct button? Because accidentally, man, I've driven with the parking brake on. I've forgotten to lock the doors. I know I would accidentally push that self-destruct button.
Why would they put it right next to the radio?
Why do they put it next to the turn signal? Yeah.
It's so stupid. I go to turn it up. All of a sudden, it's just countdown commencing.
I don't know if any real life thing has it. Like even big tankers out on the ocean, do they have a self-destruct button in case pirates take it over? I don't know if that's a thing that exists anywhere outside of sci-fi.
Perhaps it should have. We should have more of those. It'd be like, oh, really?
Could you
Click.
Could you imagine getting on a commercial airliner and the stewardess says, "Be careful, you don't touch the self-destruct button when you're getting to your seat."
It's right there by the call button. Careful now.
Oh, whatever you do, don't hit that gigantic red button.
There's the AC, the call button, and the button that blows up the whole darn thing. Careful which one you hit. I don't know why we made it big, the biggest one of all of them, but it is there.
I don't know why we put one on every single one of the 87 seats, but we did.
You know, you don't know if it's going to sell out or not. You know what I'm saying? So that seat could, like the hopper seat could be empty. You don't know.
If space pirates show up, you'll need that. Do you think maybe Ash is really the bigger monster in this movie? Because he's scarier to me.
Oh, yeah. Ash is terrible. And that's why it's so satisfying when Ash gets burned.
Out of everything in this movie, too, the single most, to me, the most gruesome thing is when Ash is trying to kill Ripley with a rolled up magazine. Man,
it's really weird.
Imagine, I can just feel how bad that would hurt. It's super creepy. It's kind of sexual in a strange way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was so meant to be all of those things, and it is, and it's like, oh, and the sound design is so good throughout this entire thing. Like just like him like rolling up that magazine and just the little sounds that they put in there. Like it is this movie has just immaculate sound design throughout the entire thing. So much of it is ADR. Some of the ADR is kind of not so hot in certain places.
Now, I watched this movie differently than I normally watch movies because it was on HBO Max. I just watched it on my computer monitor because I got a nice size computer monitor, and I listened to it through my Sennheisers, my headphones, because normally I just use the speaker that's built into the TV and I can't appreciate good sound mix. But with the headphones on, I got to tell you, with this movie, I was so impressed with the sound mix.
Yeah, I had this up at my reference level here and everything, and it is, it's just so darn good, and
it's so layered, man.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on. Ridley Scott plays a lot with silence. And of course you've got the Goldsmith's score. I think it's Goldsmith's score, which is just fantastically good. I have a giant Mondo set of that on vinyl and stuff. It's so good. Like I said, this is one of my favorite movies of all time. So this was like an easy layup for me, and I'm glad the people at Patreon said we all voted, and they were like, "Yep, that's the one we're doing." I'm like, "Sweet."
Do you think this could become a Halloween tradition? We got a whole lot more movies of this series.
We do have more of these. This is not. We've been kind of toying with stuff to replace for the Halloween stuff. I don't think that this is a bad choice, and we at least got 2 years before we get to Alien 3. So. You know.
And then what comes after Alien 3?
We got Alien Resurrection.
Okay. And then is that when we get to Prometheus? And then I never even saw the last one.
Yeah, I mean, if we want to go that, we could still do we could still throw in the Alien Predator movies.
Well, that's its own series.
But yeah,
that's its own series.
Okay, if we stay in Alien
We're
proper,
doing that on National Customs Day or something. Border Patrol. We picked a weird day to do that, remember?
It does need to be a weird one. But then we could go to those, and my guess is here's the thing. Some people don't like those movies. I like those movies well enough.
I was going to say we got 5 more years with just the main Alien movies, with 2, 3 Resurrection, then the prequels. And then if we're all still alive in 5 years, we'll see what to do next.
And I will say this, though, 3, just from like a historical perspective, and like I have so much behind the scenes knowledge because of these great documentaries that they put out on the special editions and stuff. That in and of itself is worth talking about. Just for the fact that David Fincher, that was his first film, and like how he had like zero control over it and stuff. So this is some fertile ground for us to explore for sure.
The only thing I remember about 3, and maybe it's not even in 3, but the only thing I remember about 3 is Ripley throws a basketball like a really long way and it goes through the hoop.
And then there was Air Bud.
Yeah. Is that the movie where that happens?
I forget. Honestly, I don't watch 3 a whole bunch because 3 is not very good. And there's so many reasons why it's not very good. And when you hear a lot of those stories, you're like, it's amazing this film ever got made, period.
Was Joss Whedon a writer on any of that?
That was the 4th one.
The fourth one. Okay.
That was another one that went through a ton of directors and stuff. So, like, I mean, look, at least from a history perspective, I think it'll be fun to go back and look at some of those other movies. So I think you and I just kind of just agreed on it, even with Sean not here. I think we're going to do these alien movies for Halloween because they're super fun in one way, shape, or form. So we'll do all that. But before we do, Bruce, is there any way that this here movie relates back 1-to-1 with Sylvester Stallone?
Why, yes. Thank you, Adam. I have a prepared statement via Sean. Walter Hill is a writer, but he didn't write Alien. He did, however, write The Warriors. I'm sure you're familiar with The Warriors. 48 Hours. I'm sure you know 48 Hours. Aliens, Alien 3. He's also a director, but he didn't direct Alien. However, he did direct Streets of Fire. Who doesn't love Streets of Fire? Brewster's Millions, another great movie. Red Heat. Probably Jim Belushi's best movie, right? Red Heat?
Probably.
So if he didn't write Alien and he didn't direct Alien, what exactly did he do? Well, the thing about Walter Hill is if you want to make an Alien movie, you can't make it without him because he was the big producer on Alien. He made the whole thing happen. And if you want to do absolutely anything with Alien in it, you need to have a talk with Walter Hill. He's been the producer on every Alien movie ever, including the terrible Alien versus Predator movies and Prometheus and Covenant. Walter Hill has a crazy balls career. And to give you an example of this, he's been working as the producer on a remake of Whatever Happened to Baby Jane in 2020. Walter Hill is credited as the director in 2020. Why does the guy who wrote and directed The Warriors want to do a remake of Whatever Happened to Baby Jane? Look, I don't know everything. I'm not Adam talking about politics. I'm just a man. And I have no idea why anyone would give anyone money to remake Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. In an effort to provide complete transparency, I also don't understand why there's so many Peter Pan movies. Are there massive Peter Pan fans? Are there Peter Pan conventions? Why isn't Rufio a bigger deal? Man, someday I'll have to tell you, this is me talking, not Sean. Someday I'll have to tell you an absolutely true story about one time in Seattle, I saw a stripper dressed as Rufio do a routine. Okay, let's get back to Walter Hill.
That's going to be in the after show.
In 2012, he directed Sylvester Stallone in the movie Bullet to the Head, which is exactly what you'd be wishing for if you watched that movie. Hashtag the kids still got it. Walter Hill was brought in as a hired gun on that movie. Rumors are Stallone and the first director didn't get along, so they fired him and brought in Walter Hill. Together, Hill and Stallone did a rewrite of the script, and what we ended up getting was Bullet to the Head, a movie no one has ever seen, no one talks about, and no one wants to admit exists. But it does exist. It's real. At least I think it is. I've never seen it. And there you have it, HMPers and Dingalingers. This week's Stallone Connection is Walter Hill. Adam, Bruce, this is the 328th episode of this bit, and still no word from Sylvester Stallone.
One day, perhaps. Yeah, Walter.
I thought Walter Hill was the guy from Goodfellas.
That's a Henry Hill.
Oh, I thought Henry Hill sold propane.
That's Hank Hill.
Oh, okay. I'm on top of it now.
Now you just got to get all those ducks in a row. Walter here's one of those guys that, like, he's either going to take your thing and, like, bring it into the stratosphere or strangle it to death and leave it in an alley to die. There's not a lot of weird in between, and he's one of those guys, and he's one of the few people who he either has little or no appearance in any of those Alien docs and stuff that's all in the special features. So I think he's even one of these guys that's just like, look, I'm not even going to talk about that. Like, you hear his name all the time. People are talking about him all the time, but he ain't there.
He might be so deep in it. He's like Michael Uzlan with the Batman movies. Like he knows he's getting a big check, and that's all he wants.
Yeah, I think like him and like who's the guy that did John Milius? He's like he feels like he's of the John Milius era kind of guys, you know?
Yeah.
Guys that are kind of born in the 40s and stuff. In the 60s, they got their wild and crazy, and they just were, you know, flipping nut jobs. I feel like Walter Hill's one of those cats. All right, let's get into it. Here at Here Movie Podcast, we have our own patented Robin rating system. If you want to check that out, head on over to our Reddit, man. Reddit.com/r/Hero Movie Podcast. It's right there at the top of the screen. And join in, man. We appreciate you guys hanging out and talking with us and stuff. Bruce, where does Alien from 1979 fall in the Robin rating system for you?
well, not my review, but a review I read online, describes it as a movie where nobody listens to the smart woman, so everybody dies except for the smart woman and her cat. 4 stars. This is a good movie, man. This is a good movie. I was not wanting to watch this. I was kind of a little bit bummed when I heard this one. I just remembered this as being a slow-paced movie, but I really liked it. It's one of those seminal movies. It really defines the sci-fi horror genre for a whole lot of people. So I don't see I can be anything less than like that top of the line Dick Grayson here.
Yeah, it's Dick Grayson all the way. Like I said, I kind of spoiled my hand a little early. It's one of my top 10 movies of all time. I really enjoy this. I think Ridley Scott is a master, and this was really like the thing that made everyone just go, "Oh my God, this guy!" And he's continued to put out just immaculate work, all of the time. Like even like his misses and stuff, like recent day misses. Like Exodus and stuff. Well, Exodus is not a very good movie, but like if you'd have put that in someone else's hands, it would have been like 1,000 times worse. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's one of those things that like he'll take stuff, and Ridley Scott's also one of those directors. I don't know if you saw this. I don't know what was on HBO there, but the director's cut makes this movie a better movie. Ridley Scott is one of the few directors out there that puts out a director's cut, and it's not just him, jerking his own chain and everything. He's actually making the films better by and large, and I find that to be the case with a lot of Ridley Scott stuff, and this one certainly falls into that category. Did you see what's his name there? Tom Skerritt's character get all burnt up?
No.
Okay, so you probably saw like the regular cut.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I saw the theatrical cut on HBO.
Because
I definitely, the one thing I do remember about this from when I was younger is you want to stay till the end, because that's when you see just how interesting Sigourney Weaver looks in her undergarments. I'm a big fan of that, so I'm glad he didn't cut that part.
Young Adam was a big fan of that as well.
Yeah.
I think that's where a lot of us just go like, oh, space can be sexy too. All right. But no, it's a Dick Grayson. This movie is fantastic. There's a big giant poster of Alien right behind my head right now. So I am a fan, and I am a fan of everyone for voting for this movie over at patreon.com/HMP. I'd like to thank all of you guys. Thanks for hanging out that night. Thanks for voting on all this good stuff and helping this show continue to keep running. We really appreciate that. We've got more stuff coming up. Bruce, we got a big week coming up. We got a big week, man. What's going on?
We are within 1 week of the debut of season 2 of The Mandalorian. So that means we're within 1 week of the debut of season 2 of The Mandalorian 30 Questions.
Woo!
Season 1 had a ton of folks listening, so I hope you all come back, join us for season 2. We all love this show, so I'm looking forward to it, and I can't wait to talk about it.
I feel it's going to be pretty big because, I haven't been posting anything. I haven't really been doing anything on the page itself, but the Mandalorian 30 Question Facebook page has gotten more and more likes as time has gone on here without any promotion or any posting of stuff. So, I'll call it the inorganic reach, where I'm not doing anything and it's just getting out and more people are getting there. So get on board for that, everybody, because it is a ton of fun. And I think that second season is really going to be the secret sauce that makes everybody go, look, we like this first season, but this second season has the potential to blow that first season out of the water, because we all know what we're doing now. And, it's kind of like Spider-Man 2. Once you get that first Spider-Man out of the way and we get past the origin story and all that, now we're getting into the weeds here, and it's going to be pretty sweet, I think. So check out Mandalorian 30 Questions wherever you find finer podcasts. That is it, everybody. Thank you for joining us again on yet another fun-filled Patreon special here over on HMP. For the absent Sean, I can't talk today. I don't know what's going on here. For the absent Sean Koufax, Bruce Leslie, my name's Adam Porteous. Stay super, everybody.
Goodbye, Marty and Evie.